talk about actually.
All right, let's go on with some practical matters. So I see that quite many of you voted for like assignment 2 presentations and the exam date, and by anonymous decision we have like selected this option, which means that all right, the deadline was fixed for the second assignment. The deadline is 23rd of April, and then the presentation will be on like in this week on 29th or 30th of April. We will see like whether we share it on 2 days or whether we fit everything in 1 day, but those are the dates that you need to mark your calendars for the presentation of the assignment. And then exam will be in the same week. We start at the noon of Friday, and you will have 72 hours to complete it by Monday, May 6th. So this is the dates that I hope is okay for all of you, and later we can also discuss the date for presentation of the whatever you do for your exam. So it can be the same week or the week after, so we can discuss and fix this date too. Yeah, assignment 2, deadline 23rd, presentation 29th, 30th, and the task. In this case you have more freedom than you had in the first case. First option is doing the Pac-Man again, but now in 3D, implementing all those lighting and stuff we have gone through right now, or like just demonstration of your creativity, a curiosity task, that anything that you can be relevant, you can discuss. We will like assess how much is the workload, whether it's really relevant for this course. We need to agree on actual content, and you can do actually anything if we agree on that. So this is very briefly, and now I think it's better that Christopher introduced more details of that, of the assignment 2.
Yeah, so well, you guys have done the Pac-Man 1, right? So you kind of know Pac-Man in 2D. Who has actually submitted? Okay, coming out of it.
Great.
Yeah, sometimes I'm not quite sure if I actually need to have you guys sign a consent form first before I ask those questions. Anyway, so most of you submitted, that's pretty good. So 2D is done, OpenGL is done as well. And here, the idea, the baseline task is quite straightforward. Do the same thing in 3D, right? And off you go, good luck. So, of course, you use fundamentally the same infrastructure, but now you need to think about a bit more, yeah, all the challenges that come along with 3-dimensional representation. And of course, you don't have all the foundations yet to actually complete this task. Similar to Davit running you through individual features, pretty much week by week, by adding new insights that you can actually use in your project. And same here as well, right? So, for example, you need to know about model loading and things like this. Subject of next week, which you need to do. Use of external assets to actually load Pac-Man, animate Pac-Man in 3D if you can and want. And then also think about how to use fundamentally the same model, the base model, and the map, and represent this in 3 dimensions, right? So there's a bit more challenge there, but fundamentally it builds on what you did already. So still a lot of challenge there. Last year we had really good outcomes with people, playing with things like shadows. We'll hear about it eventually. Of course, lighting and things like this, sound and so on. So there's a lot of opportunities for adding bells and whistles. Anything you pretty much could have done for the first assignment already anyway for 2D Pac-Man, but now we can do it in 3rd dimension as well, right? Right. But since some people, we had this last year, were kind of really keen to actually go out there and do their own projects, be it extending your own pet project or digging in and starting new ambitious things, we also thought about, okay, let's introduce the option of a curiosity task, right? So the idea is that basically that you are you decide your own fate, right? So you basically say, well, that's what I'm going to do. It, of course, needs to meet certain requirements that are, fundamental. All the stuff from Pac-Man 2D, of course, already. But in addition to this one, the idea was, to have model loading. So you need to use some assets, whether you create them yourself or get them from elsewhere. Sort of next week. That is up to you. It needs to include lighting, so pretty much what Davit talked about just now and last week, and dealing with computer, keyboard, and mouse interaction. So it's relatively straightforward. Otherwise, you wouldn't get particularly fun. So, and the idea is really there, we give you the space, right? So you need to come to us to discuss and say, hey, we're a group of 3, 2, I don't know, and we want to do the following. We have this idea here, and we want to use those features. So it's all set up here out here. And of course, it needs to bear a relationship to the graphics course in the sense that we do something graphical with this and produce output. And then we will say, yeah, let's do that or not, right? So because the reason why we have you design in advance is we want to get the scope right? So we don't want you to do too little, because in the end, still quite a bit of value on this one, 30%, but also not too much, right? So you don't kill yourself in a way in the process, whether explicit, not implicitly, not explicitly. Either way, so that's part of negotiation. So something you should take away from today is basically, okay, do I want to go this route or the other route, Curiosity or Pac-Man? Pac-Man, straightforward. Task is laid out for you. You can just go and hack, right, and finish that. Or do you want to actually go out there and actually explore something else? So then you need to think about what you actually want to do. And last year we had a quite broad spectrum of ideas. One group, admittedly they didn't quite finish it, they went down the route and implemented or wanted to implement 3D chess. Right? So that was quite nice. You know that from Big Bang Theory, right? So yeah, no? You know Big Bang Theory, acid test? Yeah. Lucky me. Okay, right club of students. Right, so 3D chess, another group. However, what did you in your group last year?
We made some sort of model loader where we specified the model format ourselves.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of shaders for those, I guess. We had a formal task description. I don't remember it now, but that's sort of the gist.
So it was. So I think it started out. They wanted to do a model viewer, right? So when they had a model, you want to view that interactively and scroll around it. You download those things online stuff, right? But what they did, well, first of all, they found the model forms we're talking about. Firstly, they're old and boring. Secondly, they're inefficient. So why don't roll your own, right? So that was part of the exercise. The other thing was basically they had a model loader where they could interactively, and that was the thing, modify the model at runtime. So you can actually change vertices at runtime in your model specification, and then suddenly you immediately get feedback. So it's pretty cool. And on top of that one, they explored advanced lighting by moving components and skybox and stuff like that. So it's all real-time interactivity, most of it, and also I remember highly debuggable in a way. Yeah. So it had certain nice features that they actually included. So it was basically going out there and saying, well, let's push the boundaries and see what we can do with graphics in the first place. Right? It was not so much about having a distinct purpose in the sense that we build a game or a simulation per se, but rather let's build a fancy viewer that exploits the graphic features that we actually learned about and use them. So you can. That's a possible pathway to go up, down as well. What other models did we have last year? What other? Do you recall some?
Really,
chess guys. Yeah, we had quite a rich repository. I had a look at it earlier, but it just escapes me right now. So fundamentally, if you can just move up to the tech. So all the rest is basically the same, right? We expect you guys to use OpenGL and GLW, all that kind of jazz. Professionalism, you want to have modularity in your code, use versioning, and proper instructions to get stuff going. One of the things is that if you go to marketing considerations, one of the things that is special and a bit down again. That's fine, it's all good. This one here. So we want you guys also, even if you do Pac-Man, we want to give you a bit more flexibility in how we want to mark you, because in this graphics programming, you probably appreciate this already. You have multiple directions you can go down to, right? So one of them is, okay, I want to do more with shaders and OpenGL itself, as opposed to write good code, right? So everything that Vermont, for example, talked about, and you will come back and talk about another session about structuring code, I believe, which is more like an architectural focus, right? So not necessarily only graphics, but in general architectural focus. Or are you focusing more on gameplay and usability and want to push Pac-Man to make it really interactive, really fun and stuff, and just enjoyable? And each of you may have different interests in which direction they want to take it a bit, right? So, and the idea is here we give you the choice between 3 categories, either architecture or framework, so a bit more like getting the architecture right. Gameplay usability, having a really interactive, nice experience, right? But less focus perhaps on the quality of the architecture. Just a lot of testing and ensuring that that is really refined. Or do you want to go down the aesthetics route and don't care so much about all the other stuff? You really want to have high quality graphics output, but the gameplay may not be as pleasant. So the point is, it gives you an opportunity to invest your time strategically if you want, right? If you can do all three, then it's equally weighted. But the idea is that you can actually put weights onto that as well as part of the marking. So that gives you a bit more flexibility, because right now everything we're learning is pointing in all different directions, right? It gives us insight into how to be more proficient in C++, right? Sensible architectures when game programming patterns will be talked about. Here, model loading, lighting, shadows, and so on. So, and in this whole bunch on features, you can actually carve out your own pathways. So it's also something you can decide, right? So you have considerable influence. This assignment, the second one, is a bit loose because we kind of assume if you make the first assignment and you got it done, you're probably fine, right? So you got the grips of OpenGL, the basics, right? So of course we need to learn and play around with 3D a bit more, new features, but fundamentally I don't think yet you plan to leave the course at this stage. So you probably have a good grasp of what's going on. So that's why I want to give you a bit more responsibility and allow yourself pretty much to refine and shape the entire project. Submission as usual, you just indicate your group allocations. I'm not sure if you mentioned, it's a mandatory group project, so that's the key thing here. The first one was kind of a bit up to you, whether you want to do it individually or as a group project. In fact, you tricked us because we hadn't anticipated that people do it individually. In the past, they always have done it as groups, so you beat us. But not again. So in the assignment 2, it's a group project, and the idea is really there that you have a bit more cross-fertilization in a sense, that sharing with each other. You learn the most doing this, right? I mean, last year I recall the discussions that Halvor and his peer set was way beyond what we could go into talk about in class, for example, in terms of optimizations and so on. And this will only happen if there's multiple people that work on the same kind of problem, in the same kind of specialization, and actually actively share. So that's why we're requiring group work for this particular assignment. Yeah? It also means that the scope is slightly bigger, right? You can do more, especially if you think about the curiosity task where you actually can follow your interests. You can push the boundaries considerably, right? And if you define milestones well, it also means that you kind of can work open-ended. You see how far you get, right? As long as you have a working product at the end, right? But you have kind of a minimum requirement that you want to satisfy, but you give yourself a bit of flexibility in order to extend this. In addition to this one, especially if it's about project, Davit structured the submission more systematically, right? So to describe the project outcome, particularly the negotiated ones, right? Anything you want to?
No, yeah, it's just like especially if you're gonna have this curiosity task, it's good, like very convenient to have this kind of summary. So if you go to the projects page and modify as you did for the group allocations, just as a short summary like title, repo address, like description, what is the logic, what tools do you use, and like maybe a screenshot or just an example to have an idea how it looks and how it can be extended and what can be the future work. So just a brief summary so that a person who reads this has an idea what your project is about.
Yeah, that's right. So it would be really nice to have this. I'm just thinking about looking up if I can quickly find the old projects or what happened last year to get more.
I have one, I think, pretty good example. So yeah, for Pac-Man 3D, you can choose. It can be either third person. You can like the Pac-Man moving in 3D, or it can be a first-person game. So in that case, it would be nice to have like a map and 2D projection of the movement, something like what you have done in 2D in a small scale, but it should be like in reality a first-person game. Like it's one of the options. For example, like this one. It's very simple, but it's kinda looks fun.
Come here, you! So good shot. Yeah, put your phone. Headshot. You have no idea what you're doing.
And here is that 3D projection.
Yeah, it does. I gotta be careful because these guys are smart. Programming them was really hard though. You, however, you're the dumbass. He does nothing. He just roams around. He's the smartest one. He changes expression as well when he gets too close. Excuse me! Stop following me!
So yeah, just to have an idea how it might look.
Everything is shown in the map, of course, so you know exactly where to go. They will get harder though as each level goes by, so just be careful. Yes, there's a little animated pink style girl here. Hello, goodbye.
Yeah, just
Essentially it. I mean, that is Pac-Man.
little inspiration.
That's right. Cool. Yeah, that sounds good. One extending on this, I was just looking up the project from last year. One other project people did was writing a scene editor for a game they would enjoy, basically, right? So you basically can, write that very map format that they actually use, and then render this, walk through it, debug it in a way, but actually fundamentally it's input to your game, if you like, right? So if you have any interest in that direction, go down that road as well, right? So what we want to see is just you guys proficient with OpenGL, rendering stuff, modeling, model loading, in particular lighting, right? So, and if you want to push the boundaries, shadows, perhaps, things like this. So that was one of the other projects that we had as well. Ideally, it would be really good to summarize it, as David said, with some sort of output, right? Video or picture, because that's what it's fundamentally about, right? One picture says more than 1,000 words in many respects. Of course, you will have an opportunity to show it off to the class, but you still have some value to actually, have a nice overview of what you guys actually produce. And I think that's all in that direction, right? That we wanted to say. And then this one is certainly a bit more ambitious. I'm not sure how many courses give you flexibility to kind of make your own assignment. But do you have any thoughts or questions regarding this?
Yeah.
What if you find a curiosity task that nobody else likes?
So again,
if you create a curiosity task but nobody else wants to join it, what do you do?
Yeah, then you're screwed, right? Yeah. So then think about rapid prototyping. What we do there usually, right? We sit down as a not so anonymous group, basically, right? So we pitch different ideas, right? Do a bit of brainstorming and say, hey, what about this? What about this, right? So in the end, it becomes to some extent a bit of a competition of ideas, right? So where, yes, of course, if you have a very narrow and very focused idea that may not actually find catchment with others, then you may need to, shelve that one for now, I guess, and then perhaps jump on board with someone else or find a compromise, right? So, and I think we're kind of small enough to kind of make that happen in a way. I think it's just that the value of actually sharing work together outweighs the benefits of following your pet project then in this particular context, right? That said, there's no harm actually pursuing this as a pet project on the side anyway, right? Because it could extend well beyond the course, perhaps even feeding your bachelor's, and give by necessity give you some skills that you probably can introduce in the project, right? So it would be really good actually if you're kind of open with your kind of ideas, but of course whoever pronounced an idea will to some extent be the owner in the sense that if they want to go with it, they should have the right to go with this, but if they want to forego the idea and say, I want to be on board with something else, others can of course adopt this idea and use it, right? So I think we wouldn't have a problem if two groups do the very same thing, which is just very unlikely anyway, right? So, because that's the flexibility here. But the idea is really to unleash your curiosity and try out stuff in this area, because this course only provides you very basic scaffolding of what graphics programming is realistically about, right? I mean, the sky's the limit kind of thing. And that's the opportunity you want to give you, other than having you write yet another Pac-Man, right? But if no harm there. I mean, as you saw just now, in itself it can be very ambitious stuff. So if you want to develop a derivative of Pac-Man whatever way, I don't know, do it, go for it. It's equally open to that option, of course, right? It's just that we have one specific task and one alternatively very flexible task in your part. Other thoughts?
Yeah, if we want to do the curiosity task, make sure that you will kind of let us know as soon as possible, because you need time. Like first we need to approve that, kind of agree on something, and then you will need time to work on that. Don't leave it for like last day.
That's right. So of course there's a bit more cognitive effort in the beginning to actually think about a project, plan it to some extent and do it, right? So, but it's, we appreciate that as part of your contribution as well, right? So the whole planning is more challenging compared to a project where you're kind of given all the requirements in the first place. So don't shy away from this. But also it's a great exercise, first of all for rapid prototyping, second of all for your bachelors. Because your way you will be left alone as well. Pretty much, yeah, here's the topic and here's your supervisor. Good luck, right? So that's roughly it, ideally anyway. And you're kind of expected to independently develop that process to some extent, of course. And that's very similar here. We kind of oversee, so you're not, totally going rogue. But other than that, we kind of want to give you flexibility to do what you like. Other thoughts, questions? Perhaps some ideas already? Again, remember, if you have an idea and you voice it, you're kind of the owner. So if you feel that that is just, you will not lose the idea if you voice it. Who feels like curiosity, as of ad hoc, there's no commitment. Who feels like, yeah, curiosity task would work for me? Yeah, roughly half.
Yeah, maybe majority.
Which one do we get? Okay, and the rest is more on the Pac-Man side of things? Who's Pac-Man? Committed Pac-Man. Should call that thing Pac-Woman as well, right? So, no? Only one person so far?
Pac-person.
Pac-person, that's right. That's that's right, that's the generic term. So who wants let's rename that thing, Pac-person 3D. Okay. Cool, so one so far committed, the rest is still, yeah, we'll see, right? I mean, you don't need to decide now. I think most of you are kind of semi-sick of Pac-Man, I guess. But at least you understand the game dynamics quite well. I sense a lot of serious faces here. But you can still make that call. But anyway, so that's the idea there. Yeah. Right, so if you want to go on curiosity task, probably sensible by next week to, pitch some ideas, and I think that can be done with a class setting, right, to some extent, pitching some ideas if they want to, and then bounce back and refine, and or privately if you prefer, of course, and then lock them in so you can kind of commit to ideas and doing it. But talk to us, because it's really important for scoping, right? Because then we can at least estimate if you're going down a can of worms that is followed by a can of worms and another worms can. So to ensure that you can actually manage this within time frame. Because in the end, remember the deadline is 23rd of April. Wasn't it?
23rd of April.
That's about 2 months, 7 odd weeks, quite a bit longer than last year. But still, it's a certain time constraint there, and you want to kind of scope that right. Cool. More questions? Anything to add? Did I forget something? No. Nothing.
Yeah, then see tomorrow on the presentation of your Pac-Man 2D.
You want to see Pac-Man 2D? That sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, what should be in the presentation?
We will
What kind of presentation?
just,
So the idea is basically that you, of course, show off, right? So you first of all functionally show what you gotta do, right? And put the emphasis on if you have specific things that you think go beyond the project, of course, highlight those. But generally, the functional overview, providing that you basically satisfied all the requirements and so on. So, but then also point to selected section of code. So game loop is a typical candidate of actually showing stuff. And if you had areas that you find a bit challenging, or you think you had clever or not so clever ideas, or whatever else, be honest, show them, right? So just discuss, and perhaps people have ideas, or people are impressed by what you did, right? So kind of use it a bit of a, again, prototyping, in the sense that assuming you developed a project you want to get funding for, right? You have 5 minutes to pitch it, right? Actually, you have 10 to 15. Well, 10 minutes is probably sensible, right? Or 10 to 12 minutes. We won't be super harsh. We give you a bit of flexibility there. But, find a reason to show what you did. But also be honest if something went sideways. We like that as well, because everyone learns from that, right? So if people see, oh, that was not a good solution, or perhaps people have better ideas, right? It's fine. So it's not rigid in this direction, but I think it's a bit more along the lines of, what we can produce, what we have produced, and the nice bells and whistles left and right. So it's no hard call. I mean, don't make a PowerPoint, right? So I mean, if you're terribly excited about the gameplay dynamics in Pac-Man and you want to formalize in one way in game theory, yeah, please go for it. But no, this is a very practical demonstration, right? You show us what you did, show how it runs. Of course, HDMI is a requirement. Or if you use sound, for example, show that off as well. But that's fundamentally the idea. So it's not a hard and fast, and the presentation as per se is not really marked. That's more like showing you what you did. The marking happens after that, right? So, but I think it's still worthwhile thinking about, okay, what do we actually do? Because even a tech demo wants to be planned, right? So you can't, oh, I don't need to plan, I just show everything I have. That works in some cases, but I think it's still worthwhile for you to reflect what you want to show off, especially if in a group.
So I think it will make sense to start with actual demonstration. Just you should run your code and show how the game looks and how to play it, and then discuss the implementation part.
And all the things you want to claim bonus points for. Emphasis. Right. That's what you need to do with an investor as well, right? So you're beyond the expected. Good. Other thoughts, questions?
Great.
That is excitement. Great. I love that spirit, you know.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, yeah. You have